Tonight is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022, it's 7:30-ish p.m. This is the Planning and Zoning public hearing of the evening, and we also tonight have a general meeting. We are in Town Hall and room 206 with Jeremy Ginsburg, Donate, and myself, and also Bonnie, our court reporter. Is that the proper word? Is back. Court reporter? Fantastic.
That's good.
Is back on staff. Carrie Gately's waving holiday. And we're also holding this meeting virtually via GoToMeeting as per the governor's orders. If anybody in the general audience, specifically Frank Bongiorno and Jack, can you guys shut off your microphones? That will help us background noise. If not, I think someone here in Town Hall can shut off your microphones for you. All right, without further ado, let's get right started. I'm going to read this and we're not going to continue, right?
That's correct.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is subdivision application number 617B as in boy, land filling and regrading application number 439A as in apple, 175 side LLC at 175 Road. The proposal is to raise the existing single-family dwelling and other accessory structures on the subject's 4.53 plus or minus acre lot and to subdivide the property into two building lots, respectively, 2.0 plus or minus acres and 2.53 plus or minus acres in size. The proposal to regrade the property to accommodate the construction of the two conceptual single-family dwellings, associated pools, and hardscaped areas. The subject property is situated on the west side of Brookside Road at the northwest corner formed by its intersection with Stonewall Lane and is shown on Assessor's Map number 5 as Lot 13 in the R2 zone. This item is to be continued immediately, is to be open and continue immediately to March 8th. What do we got, Jeremy?
Yes, the applicant still needs to go before the Environmental Protection Commission, and their hearing was continued. So the applicant has authorized a continuation of this hearing to March 8th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. The GoToMeeting link will be posted on the town website the Thursday prior to the meeting.
Fantastic. So it's 1 month from tonight if everyone's keeping records. The next on the agenda is a continuation of public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the Darien Zoning Map, COZM number 3-2021, business site plan application number 244A as an apple, special permit application number 262A, Guidepost A LLC at 66 Tokenique Road. I'm not going to
76 Tokenique Road.
I'm sorry, Jesus, sorry about that. 76 Tokenique Road. The proposal to rezone 76 Tokenique Road property from design commercial to designed office. The proposal to establish a Montessori-based school to be licensed as a child care center in the space formerly occupied by Trio Rent. Reconfigure the parking and internal traffic circulation, create fenced playground areas, and perform related site development activities. This 0.44 plus minus acre subject property is located on the north side of Tokenique Road, approximately 675 feet east of its intersection with Old Kings Highway South. It is shown on assessment number 38 as lot number 2 in the design commercial DC zone. We opened this public hearing a week ago. We did a whole lot of work and review on it. We asked the application to go back, and Jeremy's going to give an update on where we are. And
Right. You may recall there were a number of issues covered at the last meeting, and one of the issues you asked Mr. Maslin to come back with and his team was the question of comparable Montessori schools that they operate in terms of parking, classrooms, how that relates to the Darien site. Talk a little bit about parents walking the children into the school versus LA parking type protocol that the school has. And so there were a few things that Mr. Maslin wanted to get back to us with this week. So on behalf of the school, we have attorney Robert F. Maslin, and his team includes Matt Knopf. Bob?
Thank you, Jeremy, and everybody. Good evening. I have Matthew Knopf, who is the primary contact with Guidepost And I think to make things short, I've added several slides to our PowerPoint, and I've uploaded it the best I could. There was a problem with the size of the combined file. Anyway, Matt is here, and I can run the PowerPoint off my computer, and Matt can talk while I'm managing through the slides, if that's okay. So, Fred, can you give me what do you call it, presenter role? And then Matt, you want to introduce who's here on the team? And oh, here we go. All right.
Yeah, well, Bob is pulling up the PowerPoint. I just want to, again, I'm Matt with Higher Ground Education. I've been working intimately with Bob on this application and the rest of our team. We also have on the call Sarah, who's our Director of School Open. She was on the call last week, and also Corey, our traffic engineer, who was also part of the meeting last week. Yeah, I just want to thank you all for, spending more time with us this evening to discuss the project. As Jeremy mentioned, we want to cover like 3 basic topics from last week, related to classroom type, age range, student count. Also talk, about trip generation and the parking, as related to the drop off and pickup process. And then also, mitigation measures, should they become necessary in the future. So Bob, I don't know if you can pull up the slides, but. And it should only take about 5 minutes to walk through some of these slides, and then we'll end with a video of our valet procedure that we touched on last week.
For some reason, Fred, this just isn't working. I have the little window that you sent, but it shows nothing on. And I have 2 screens going here with applications, and for some reason they're just isn't working. Maybe, I guess Matt, do you have it on your system? You think you might be able to try it?
Yeah, give me I didn't download your updated one. I have the old one, but it'll probably work. Just give me a minute.
If I can get to, I mean, nothing's Fred, can you just like undo it and do it again and see what happens?
Hold on a second, Bob.
Choose the application to share, and I'm just not getting an application to share here. Screen, I click the screen thing. Wow, never had this happen before. And I got 3 hearings tonight. Figure this out. Screen. Wow. Me? Connected, I'm connected.
There it goes.
Oh, what did it?
Oh, no, wait, that might be on my screen, sorry.
Okay.
I do have it pulled up if you want to try and give me control.
Yeah, something's going crazy here, but can you try that? Fred, give Matt the presenter thing. There you go.
Did that pull up?
That's on. That's
Yeah,
good.
okay, I don't have it in like presentation mode, but I could just scroll through the slides as we talk, so.
That's good.
Okay. So we have the original slides if we need to talk to them from last week, but we're just gonna start here. So the first slide is just in regards to classrooms and age range and student count. And so there was some question on how the makeup of the school would be. And so I just wanted to clarify that, you know, as we said and showed, you know, in the floor plan here, we have 4 classrooms on site. First floor, we have a Nido classroom and a toddler classroom. And then on the second floor, we have 2 children's house classrooms. Those classrooms are made up of, on the Nido, this is actually incorrect. There should be 3. The age range for Nido is 3 to 18 months. Toddler classrooms is 18 to 36. And then both child's house classrooms are, you know, 36 to up to 6 years old. And you can see this is the way the student count would break down in those classrooms. The opening is what we're anticipating, you know, max enrollment once we ramp up. And then once we get accredited, you know, our steady state enrollment is projected to be 78. And that's what we're basing all of our calculations in regards to parking and trip generation and everything is on the larger maximum number. So I'll just pause there if there's any questions, you know, just on the kind of the classroom makeup, and then we can move on to site plan and some of the other information.
The time period between student opening and steady state is what? And that's dependent on state certification?
Yeah, it usually takes, my understanding, and Sarah, maybe you could speak to this, but it usually takes like 1 to 2 years for us to get an accreditation in place. And similarly, you know, it takes about the same time. We say 2 years, maybe a little longer, maybe a little bit shorter to ramp up to, you know, a steady state. So, you know, we would anticipate, you know, in a year or 2, we would hopefully be hitting this, you know, 56 mark. And then if we're also simultaneously accredited by that point, you know, hopefully, and again, the need arises in the community, you know, we would continue to ramp up to the 78.
So it's the inside's a year and the outside's 2 years plus?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. Yeah.
It sounds like a Sarah question, or it feels like a Sarah question.
1 year may be aggressive. We would love it to be day 1, but yeah, 1 year, you know, it's safe. I think you're safe to say that, yes.
But in all honesty, you have to apply for this to the state to go from 56 to 78, correct? It's not like they move that fast.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely going to be time if, you know, for us to get in there, get operationally set, understand, you know, how everything is working, you know, improve on any processes, procedures and things of that nature, you know, as enrollment ramps up. And that's true for any facility, not just this facility.
And then I apologize if I didn't ask this last time. What's the target opening date for this in best case scenario? Is it September 2022 or October 2022?
I would say best case, yeah, 3rd quarter 22, maybe 4th quarter 22. Certainly we're looking to get this facility open this year.
So you kind of model with the school year, which would be September, right?
Yeah, I don't, it's not so much predicated by that, because again, this is more childcare than, you know, a typical school, which, you know, has summers off, but it's more predicated on, you know, hopefully gaining, you know, approvals and then getting permit drawings submitted and permitted. And then once we're built out, obviously there's a licensing stage that takes a little bit of time to get licensed with the state. So.
Okay.
And then Matt, you have to get certified as a Montessori.
Well, yeah, the first step is to get licensed via the state, and that's the 56 opening. And then there's a second accreditation process, which my understanding takes another 2 years plus or minus to gain that accreditation. Then that allows us to ramp up.
And I apologize, again, you keep saying my understanding, but is that accreditation from the state of Connecticut or for the Montessori,
For the Montessori, it could take 2 years to be accredited by the Montessori accreditation office, and then organization, and then we need to submit that to the state after we get accredited as well in order to move to that steady state number.
Okay, all right, because I'm just trying to figure out where we're going to go with the approval process and whatnot, but keep going. I think we're doing good.
Okay. So I'll pull up the site plan and we'll speak to a minor change we made there in a minute. But we just wanted to take a minute to step back, and Corey's here if we need to talk to any specific questions, but we wanted to mention 3 things from the traffic study that were mentioned last week, but we think are important to the overall analysis here. The first is, existing traffic counts were completed on the site. We identified the peak morning hour being 7:30 to 8:30, peak evening hour 4:45 to 5:45. The afternoon hour or the afternoon pickups, didn't seem to be of a concern. So we'll focus more on the morning here because that's the more intensive operation. So that 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. peak drop-off window, according to the actual on-site data, is very similar to what we expect from our drop-off and pickup procedures. So that aligns. It's also interesting to note that per ITE standards, not our information, but ITE standards, and based on a school of this size, 78 students, the calculation from traffic engineer is that this site will generate 32 inbound trips in the AM peak period. So if you divide that by 12, that's roughly 3 trips, in any given 5-minute period. And that's the same amount that we were talking about, last week. And so that's really consistent, again, with what we see as an operation. And so really what we're talking about here is we're expecting, 3 to 5 trips in this peak time. How that kind of equates to the site and the parking is, we have 19 spaces. If we eliminate the one ADA space, plan for 9 staff, that allows basically 9 open spaces to handle these peak trips in the morning period. Okay. The other thing that to note is that per the traffic analysis, we would expect to have a queue of less than 1 vehicle, which would be accommodated on site. And generally, if you look at the site plan, I'll speak to this in just a second, we actually have enough room for 2 vehicles to queue in the worst case scenario. So on my screen here, let me see if I can zoom in. Oh, yeah, there we go. So what we did do is we looked at, if we move this ADA space down closer to Tokenique Road, in the event that we're, assuming, 90% of the time or whatever the number is that space is not utilized, that allows for, in the worst case scenario, if a car is backing out of this space and creates, a stoppage, if you will, that allows to have at least 1 full car queued, on site, and, second car to be queued, within driveway apron, which is probably not optimal, but again, in reality, we could accommodate, 2 vehicles queuing. And where at the traffic analysis, it came up that it would only, it really only warrants, based on the number of trips in ITE, a vehicle queuing of 1. So what does that really mean? Okay, so that's kind of some of the facts, right? And so what does that mean moving forward in future considerations? So, again, as we stated last week, we think based on that we're parked per municipal requirements, the morning peak produces about 3 to 5 trips, and we've got 9 spaces to accommodate this. Again, we got the ability to, queue minimum 2 cars and more, if there's not that conflict at that first space. Again, we feel that the site will, experience steady flow of arrivals and departures throughout this peak period and, will not cause parking congestion or queuing out onto the right of way. That said, if in the future, as we ramp up, as we talked last week, we're, willing to look at, mitigation efforts. And we've talked over the last week and even, as recently as today of a few different methods. One, we can look at off-site municipal parking for staff. We also talked, and it may have actually been suggestion of staff or somebody, it came through Bob, I'm not exactly where it came through, but we also, entertained, well, maybe do we call some of these spaces in the back, the pickup and drop off spaces. And, these are the staff parking so that, again, you have additional queue space to get into the site. Now, from our perspective, it's not as optimal because, then parents are walking their children across the drive aisle. We can certainly do things like add more sidewalk, add some, crosswalk striping or something to make it a safer solution. But again, it's something we're willing to look at. But I think really, and most importantly, what we would implement is what we talked about last week is, our valet operation. And we've got a video to demonstrate how that works. And before we show that video, we did identify, let me zoom back out here. 6 other, these are open schools. We don't have it here in the slide, but the majority of them are open in 2020, 21. One was opened in 2019. But these are all similar locations, open and operating, that are of similar, some are higher in staff count, some are, right in the same ballpark. And, you can see the varying parking counts. But currently, to our knowledge, all of these operations are, operating, again, per our typical pickup and drop off procedure. We haven't implemented any special procedures at these locations. We do have site plans of these locations. If we want to look at them, we can do that, maybe through the Q&A portion, if you guys have questions. And then, so the only other thing I just want to leave you with, which we think is really the long-term solution, if there does become a problem, is, our valet procedure. And I just happened to have that teed up as well. And so maybe I can maximize this. And so this video will only take, about 40 seconds. And you'll see there's a timer in the corner here. So. And what you might not catch in that is that procedure, I think, takes about 20 to 30 seconds to get the child out of the car into the sidewalk, or 40 seconds. We typically say, under a minute. And so really what that video is demonstrating is that, where we're talking about, a 5-minute dwell time or something like that in a traditional scenario, implementing this valet system really cuts that, by 20, almost, well, I'm getting the math messed up, but, down to 1 minute, or, even if it's not 1 minute and a child's having a bad day or something, if it's 2 minutes, it's cutting that dwell time in half at minimum. And we think even better. So with that, again, we've got site plans to review if you want to see that. And then, we'll just open it up for any other questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you for that. First order is the queuing in the apron. Is the chief of police's letter in?
Yeah, we read that aloud last time. Don Anderson sent in comments. Applicant must adhere to the statement on page 4 of the application that the proposed parking lot area is designed to prevent any necessity for backing out or queuing onto token.
Okay.
Can you repeat that, Steve? Yours, oh,
Can I read it, Jeremy? Thank you. He said, can you repeat that, Steve? Everybody, especially commissioners, tonight we have, thankfully we have Bonnie back as our, like I said, court reporter. So she may ask me, or I may ask you to repeat it again, back the way it used to be in the old days. It's still a little bit hard because her microphone's now pointing at my computer, but we're gonna try our best for everyone's efforts. Hey, Sarah, where are you? I just need your last name for the record. I'm sorry.
It's Krinsky, Krenski.
And what's your title at Guidepost or at Montessori?
Director of School Open.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Sarah, Kara, just for the record again, this is Chief Don Anderson's comments to the application because everything gets referred to the traffic authority. And his comments, it says, permit or approval from this department is not required, but comments, the applicant must adhere to the statement on page 4 of the application that the proposed parking lot area is designed to preclude any necessity for backing out or queuing onto Tokenique Road. Did you hear that, everybody?
thank you.
Good, okay. So relative to Matt, that's something that we have to make sure we do it right. I'm staring at your site plan survey from Dynamic Engineering, and I see the queuing, I see where it is. Then if you look at overlay and aerial off of Google Maps, you know, there's definitely space there where the dividing line is between Tokenique Road and the sidewalks that's there. I don't know, but we can't allow, we can't disregard what the chief of police says. So that's one item. What else? The valet thing that you showed, that may or may not be applicable to a place like Darien, Connecticut. That looks like it's in downtown Chicago, not to say right, wrong, or indifferent. But this is more of a suburban setting. I mean, I dropped off my kids at home school every day, and one of the golden rules was the kids had to get out on the passenger side of the car, and they went right to the curb, the way they designed it. And that's just the way it works in the Darien public school system. And back in those days, everybody had a minivan where you pressed the button, the door opened up, the kid jumped out, you pressed the button again, the door closed. Not a lot of people in our town drive minivans anymore. So those are the things we got to work out relative to moving the employee parking, maybe in the front, and the queuing in the drop off and pick up in the back. That might sound like a good idea. I would really like to see if we can figure this thing out to make sure it works. It's going to work right. The thing, and I'm just thinking out loud here, and Jeremy and I talked about it a little bit, was if we go with the concept that this is going to be a 56 kid school.
It's not, it's 70.
I understand. It's going to start out as a 56 kid school for the first 2 years. And then once you get your accreditation from wherever you have to apply for your accreditation, get passed for your accreditation, then it graduates from 56 to 78. Then we can look at it again. Maybe we could have a real traffic study in that time frame. So those are some items that I'm thinking about. Anything else that you want to ask at this point? No. All right, I want to open up to the commissioners, see if any commissioners have any questions at this point. Jim Rand, you want to go first, sir?
I could go anywhere. Do I recall from last week's conversation that the ADA space has to be as close as possible to the door?
Well, so then let's ask Jeremy, are they allowed to move it 12 feet to the south?
Wherever the building official tells them it has to go.
Okay.
Say
So
that
right now-
again?
The ADA space has to go wherever the building official says it's got to go. So in the site plan that you're looking at on your screen, the ADA parking space was moved 2 spaces to the south, I'm gonna call it, closer to Tokenique Road. If the building official doesn't approve that, then let's go back to where it was, or whatever he says it's gotta be.
Well, the reason for the question is the queuing issue.
Agreed.
And who's the building official?
Pete Stallheim, Mike Vitti, Vitti looked at this at all? You know, Ken? No. Yeah, it hasn't been thrown in front of Mike Vitti yet. Let's say this thing can be moved to the left or to the right, so we don't have to hang our hat on it, because at the end of the day, we'd love to try to close this hearing tonight, and move on, and anything else staff can take care of. But I tried to answer, we tried to answer that question, Jim. Karen, your microphone's on. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I was more comfortable last week than I am now. I don't really, I kind of, the applicant representative tonight kind of confused me a little bit, and it might just be that I'm tired or something. But if he's talking about the peak time and there are 78 students, which I know will probably be less families, but there's also then the addition of staff and he's saying 32 inbound divided by 12 so that it's less than a queue of 1 vehicle, and I'm not following that math.
Yeah, last week we had a good thing that was up us, and I'm looking inside the traffic group study, and the math that you were talking about, Matt, is that in here on one page?
And where are you getting these numbers from?
There's 60 minutes in an hour, so if you divide it by 12, you get 12 5-minute blocks. So they're saying 36 cars, how many 5-minute blocks will it take? That's why you divided it by 12 and got 3. So for every 5-minute block, there'll be 3 cars in there based on 36 inbound trips. Is that, Matt, would you say is that my understanding correct of how you're doing that?
Correct. Yeah.
Is there a page, I'm sorry,
Yeah, on
nervous.
page,
It's going to work out that perfectly.
sorry, on page 6 of the traffic report, it's actually table 4.
I mean, given how tight you are, if it doesn't work out that perfectly and that, methodically, you have a problem.
And that's, again, like I said earlier, that's based on 78 kids. Because we know from the beginning.
But that's what they're anticipating having at some point, and that's what they're asking for, right?
Correct, which is 2 years from now.
But yeah, but the site's not going to change in 2 years. Is there going to be more parking?
No, but if it doesn't work, we know 2 years that it doesn't work.
I don't think that's what we base approvals on. I think we have to base it on what they're asking and what they're anticipating having, and if they have the adequate parking, because the lot's not getting more parking spots.
So if I could just add, per, and I know this may not mean much, but per ordinance, we have the required parking. And what we're saying is basically what we're saying, how the math is working for day 1 is that we have 9 additional spaces, open spaces for pickup and drop off. And if we're saying that 3 to 5 trips are coming, that basically means, we can cycle 3 peak trips in those spaces, 2 to 3 trips, let's say 2 to 3 peak trips, right? Depending if you're using 3 or 5. And so based on other facilities that are very similar to this and are currently operating, that today, currently today are not experiencing the same, any sort of issues. I'm not saying those issues won't arrive at those other sites in the future, and we'll address that. The same as what we're saying here is that, we think day one, we will not have an issue. But as we ramp up, if it does become a problem, yes, we cannot add parking, but we have other mitigation measures. We could take and move, hopefully, direct staff to park off-site. That opens up another 9 spaces. We can, or, half, or maybe, whatever. And, or, we can relocate parking spaces, or not relocate, but assign, parking spaces in the back as the pickup and drop off, so that, if queuing is an issue, we can assign parking spaces in the back as a pickup and drop off, and, leave the parking spaces in front of the building, for staff. So that allows the queuing issue to go away. And then really, I think those are options 2 and 3. I think really option 1 is the valet. And I know, I don't know who mentioned that was more of an urban setting. It is, we don't have a video, specifically for this site or residential site, but the process would work similarly. And even if, I'm just talking out loud, even if that valet, even if the parent has to park, and then you take the car out, not park, but pull into a space, you take the child out, they back out and they leave. So even if that video demonstrated 1 minute, well, it's 40 seconds, but let's just say 1 minute, and let's say it takes twice as long, that's 2 minutes. And so in a 2-minute period, now with those 9 spaces, we can cycle 4 different, peak periods based on the parking we have. Again, and if that's not enough, maybe we have to implement all 3 measures. I don't know, but I think what we're saying is as we evolve and parents become more familiar with this process, and we have these 3 mitigation measures that we can hopefully employ, we're comfortable. I don't know, we have to get you guys comfortable. We're comfortable that this site could or will, operate smoothly. And I think I mentioned last week too, is, we are as concerned about our parents having a smooth process, which is directly proportional to the success of our facility. And so if there's an issue, we're going to want to correct it just as much to satisfy our operations as to, comply with your municipal regulations.
No, that's 100% understood. If you're, it's the Yogi Berra thing. It's so crowded, nobody goes there anymore.
Right.
It's got to be good for the parents and the kids to get dropped off. George or Adam, you want to add to this discussion at all? Go ahead, Adam. Want to go first?
Sure. So a couple questions. On one of the other lookalike schools that had like 78 kids, what's the breakdown of families in the school? Because for you to have 78 kids and only 36 trips generated, that means every single student in the school has a sibling in the school, and then a couple families have 3 kids in the school, which to me feels like it's not reflective of reality. I think there's obviously high sibling rates, but I don't think it's every single kid in the school. So to me, the 36 number feels like way low. So if you could maybe come back with that data, just so we can get a better sense of what other schools look like in terms of their makeup, to see if it's 38 and it's no big deal, or is it really more like 50 trips generated? My other
that real quick, it's Corey Chase. I'm the traffic consultant with the applicant with Dynamic Traffic. It's actually the 32 entering peak hour trips. That's based on the single hour. If you remember from our testimony last week, the drop off actually occurs from 7:30 a.m. to about 10 a.m. So we're focusing on that single hour, which is the worst case scenario. But the reality is the drop off is spread out over 2.5 hours. So we're not saying that everyone in the schools dropped off during that time, and it's a function of there being, multiple siblings or absentees or things of that nature. What we're saying is the drop off actually occurs over a longer duration, but this is the worst case entering volume hour.
Oh, so you don't think 36 trips is the total trips generated over the course of morning drop off, but just during the peak hour?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. So my other question is, do you have any kind of diagram that illustrates the flow of traffic through the parking lot? We have another application before us for another similar daycare with similarly tight parking. And that was very helpful because I'll be honest, I went to the site this weekend with my wife. There's no possible way that you can do a valet and then a U-turn style turnaround in the parking lot. It's just too narrow. I don't think that you can even go all the way around to the back and then do a turnaround without doing an actual car 3-point turn. So even with the valet implemented, it's pretty sure you're going to be in a scenario where cars are pulling into the right and then backing out to the left and then coming out. So just an idea of how you think traffic will flow through that parking lot and how you envision the valet system working might be helpful. And I do know that I think if you look at the site, moving the ADA spot, I think if you can, is a good idea. I would consider moving it the other direction, more northbound, because we also tried pulling into that first spot and backing up and see, and my wife, who drives a mid-size SUV, was out on Tokenique Road there. So if you block off as close to the street as you can, you're going to force cars to park closer. I think you kind of want to move that spot away to ease somewhat of how people can come in and come out of that area, because it's very, very tight. And I know that the deli next to it, I think, is vacant right now, the adjacent property, which is to the west, I will say, of that. So I don't know what we have planned going in there. I don't think there's any application before the commission to redevelop that yet. But generally, in the morning rush hour, that parking lot is packed with trucks and workers and stuff, including parked out on Tokenique Road. And I could see that having an impact back in, whatever business we decide to put in there or gets put in there, will potentially also impact your traffic queuing, even in a perfect world where you can do it just by the nature of how close that property is to this. I think their parking lots are literally just a chain link fence that divides them. So that would be it. And then my one question, which is more for Jeremy, can we make a conditional approval where we say 56 is, we can do it, but you have to come back to us if you want to expand to 78 once you have your accreditation, and we can look at how the traffic is so that, we can, have some quasi real time say, yes, this works, we're good at it, no problem. And we can just do it real quick, or we can come back, or is that not something we can do based on the occupancy of the building?
No, that's where I was alluding to too. I'll let Jeremy ask that. We can also ask Bob Maz.
You can't do that.
Jeremy, what do you think?
I don't have the authority to do that.
I'm sorry.
Hold on, Kara. Yeah.
No.
Clearly, it breaks up. I mean, does it break up for you? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
it does.
breaking up for me.
Okay. You have to be recognized before you can talk. It's messing up, Bonnie. I'm going to let Jeremy answer your question where you can hear it separately versus anyone else. Go ahead.
Yes, because this is a special permit application, the commission has to make certain findings under section 1005 relative to the intensity of use. So certainly the commission, if you're not comfortable approving the entire project as proposed, could approve something less.
Oh, the answer is you can approve 56, get it open, come back in 2 years, and if it works, we can up it to 78.
Or approve a number less than 78.
All right. Okay. Bob, did you hear that?
Yes,
Is that something you think your client would consider?
I'd have to talk to them, and it's hard to do it remotely, but To follow up on Jeremy's point, the legal way of explaining it is conditioning and approving. And the condition would be a modification with an approval. If you want to give me a minute, I can see if I can reach one of them on the phone.
That's fine. We just have to ask George questions too.
Okay.
George, any questions to this application? We also have Jeff Ball that's here as chimed in.
No, I'm following the flow, but I don't have my own questions at this point.
Okay. Jeff Ball, anything to add or questions, sir?
No, I think most of them have been already answered.
Okay, great. Great. What else? We talked about staffing, talked about the thing. You know, it's really, this is for us to noodle around with at the end. All the testimony. Do you have anything else to add? Matt or Bob might be on the phone with Bob.
I've got one quick one. I don't recall. Is there a crosswalk going from across Tokenique Road there? I know there's one that goes from that island where Sono is across the island if you stay on sort of the east side of Tokenique Road, because there's a new sidewalk that the town just put in like a year ago. But I don't know if there's a crosswalk across the street, because I'm just wondering if we might think about putting one in there. Potentially we'll have people maybe walking from getting coffee or something, or parking in that parking lot behind Sono.
Yeah.
Adam, I can answer that question. Tokenique Road is a state road, so the town would not be able to do something like that. It would totally be up to the state on whether they could safely install a crosswalk, whether they would do a crosswalk to that exit. I don't know. My guess is probably not, but it would totally be their call as to whether they could. Certainly the state will have their shot at this, no doubt about it, because they need a permit from the state.
Yeah, there is a new crosswalk that's on the other side of the interstate from the new sidewalk that the town put in, that basically it gets you from Sutton Bakery, follow the sidewalk down, and you can cross over to 100 Tokenique Road, which is that office building. So that's the sidewalk to get on that side. But there's no sidewalk from like Old Kings Highway across to this subject building with the parking lot. Okay. Any feedback, Bob? Maslin?
I'm on, just, can you give me 1 second, Steve? I'm on the phone. It's kind of tough with the microphones going here. Can you give me just about 10 seconds?
Of course you can, because commissioners, what Matt Knopp testified to, and I think maybe we might want to ask Corey some questions relative to the movement inside the property that Adam was alluding to. But what Matt was saying earlier is that on day one, you know, he thinks this thing's going to be fine, and I don't disagree with him, because if there's only 26 kids there, you know, day one, day two, the first year it'll be fine. You know, it depends as it ramps up. That's when it gets, you know, more busy, if that's proper English. I don't know if that's proper English. Is it? I think it might be. But Corey, earlier, Adam made a couple of questions relative to the parking lot and the turnarounds and hammerheads and whatnot, to be able to come in instead of doing a 3-part turn to get out. If I take my SUV in there, Adam is a future customer of the school because he's got kids in this strike zone. You say, you know, but can you maybe answer his question, since you're the traffic engineer and looked at the site plan pretty extensively?
Yeah, certainly. So we are providing 24-foot wide drive aisles. Those are standard width drive aisles for perpendicular parking spaces. The intent for the valet, if that is utilized, would be for parents to still pull into the parking stalls. We're not intending to implement any sort of one-way circulation where they would just drive through, drop off, and continue driving. The intent would still be that they would pull into a parking stall, a staff member would greet them at the parking stall and take their child from the car, return them back to the sidewalk area before that parent would leave. So it would still function much in the same way it would without the valet. The intent is just that the parent wouldn't have to get out of the car and escort the child into the building. That would be done through staff members. So the drive aisles, again, are in compliance with standard drive aisle widths for perpendicular parking. So we think that they'll function both safely and efficiently. And the idea really with moving that ADA stall to the furthest point south was to create that additional offset from Tokenique Road into the property. Obviously, not only do you have the ADA stall, but you have the striped landing space beside it. So you effectively get the width of 2 parking stalls in addition further into the site away from Tokenique Road to accommodate any additional traffic that was to queue there.
Okay. Yeah, I see. And what about would you recommend moving the ADA spot further to the north?
I would recommend keeping it as far south as possible in its current location. That will provide the greatest availability for queuing between Tokenique Road and the first, higher turnover parking stall. Obviously, if the ADA stall is utilized, it's going to be a very low demand, low turnover space. So I would recommend keeping it in the location that's shown on the screen.
Which is the current, it's your current staff. So is this a change in submission of the plan? Do you know, Jeremy? Are they changing from what the application is to this new one?
No.
Yeah, that's changed from the original submission.
Right. So the question is the new site plan to change in the existing application? Go ahead, Bob.
The only thing that's changed here is the specific location of this handicap parking space. And sometimes when the commission approves a site plan or even a special permit, when it gets to the building department, there may be adjustments. I've had it happen before. There may be adjustments in either the count or the location where the building official wants to see the handicap spaces. I looked up in the ADA, some of the language is kind of fuzzy. This site, before this plan that's up on the screen was designed, the handicap space was all the way in the back at the, I guess, rear left corner of the building because there was a back entrance there. And whether it had to be there, I don't know. They could have had it somewhere else. There's a rule that says if you have multiple access points, you don't have to be right next to either one. The only language that I can find is language that says it has to be along the shortest route, not at the shortest route. So it's fuzzy, and it's really up to the building official. Is this a change in the plan? I think it would be considered a field adjustment if the building official says, put it here, put it there, or, wants it moved.
Okay.
I mean that happens, and it's happened in a few applications that I've been involved in over the years. So,
no, I don't disagree with you.
Now regarding what to do here about the 56 and 78, we don't have the right people or all of the people that we need from Guidepost to make the decision now on whether or not that's going to work for them. We could leave the hearing open so we can respond next week or in the interim and let the staff know if that's okay. I mean, it wouldn't, it's not like we're going to reopen the hearing and have 2 hours of testimony. It would just be a very short, very brief discussion, I think.
Okay, I'm looking for Jeremy. What do you think?
Yeah, we can do it next week.
Okay.
All right, so let's leave it open for that. Okay. Before we adjourn this hearing, any other questions from any other commissioners or anyone in the general public like to speak in this public hearing? Okay. We're good, Jeremy?
So the public hearing will be continued to Tuesday, February 15th 7:30 PM with the go-through meeting details to be posted this Thursday afternoon, February 15th.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, next item on the agenda. Where are we? Proposed amendments to the Darien Zoning Map, COZM, the COZM number 1-2022, land filling and regrading application number 524, Frank Bongiorno at 78 West Avenue. Proposal to rezone 78 West Avenue from R1 half to R1 fifth. Proposal to raise the existing residence and construct a new single-family dwelling in generally the same location, install a pool and patio, new driveway, and to perform related site development activities, including the regrading of the property and installation of stormwater management. The 0.27 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the north side of West Avenue, approximately 160 feet east of its intersection with Bailey Avenue, and is shown on Assessor's Map number 18 as Lot 6 in the R1 half zone. Jeremy, what do we got?
This is a proposal, two-part proposal. First part is to amend the zoning map. You can see from the submitted materials, it's a small change. It's just moving the existing zone boundary one lot away. Similarly, the proposal is to construct a single-family residence. There's a little regrading associated with that residence, and you can see the submitted plans show that regrading. In this case, the rezoning, the changing of the zoning map from R1 half to R1 fifth would not change what this is, which is one building lot in the town of Darien. It is currently a building lot. It will remain a building lot, but it will be a little easier to conform to the regulations. They wouldn't need a lot of variance and things like that. Attorney Bob Maslin is here to kind of show you how it plays out on the zoning map. It's contiguous to that existing zoning district. We did file a copy of this with the town clerk because it's a zone map change. We've received no outside comments on the application. Again, it's one lot, which is about 0.27 acres from R1 half to R1 fifth.
Okay, I do remember seeing this for Mr. Maslin. Where'd you go? There you are. Welcome, sir.
I'm here, Attorney Robert Maslin, representing the Bongiornos. Well, let's try this again, Fred. Not sure if it'll work, but we'll give it a try. I don't know what, oh, ha ha ha. Here we go, all right. Okay, let me get my PowerPoint set up here and slideshow from beginning and, aha. I don't know what you did, Fred, but it seems to be working. Okay. All right, give me just one swap. Okay. All right, this is a two-part application, and it's one of those, in case we need a regrading and filling permit, we added it to the application. But before I became involved, oh, by the way, Frank Bongiorno Sr. and Jr. are both somewhere in the list of attendees here. Before I was involved in it, the architect or contractor went to Dave Keating to see about getting a zoning permit, and Dave seems to have been okay with the plan except for one thing. This is a non-conforming lot, and it's not large enough or wide enough, I think, to qualify for the exception, and it would have required a variance. So they came to see me, and I looked at the circumstances and I said, wait a minute, something's wrong here. This lot is the same size as the adjacent lots heading to the east along West Avenue, and all those lots are in the 1/5 acre zone. So I thought about it a bit. and came to the conclusion that it would be better for zoning purposes to make this lot conform. It would be removing one more non-conforming lot from the list in town, and it's consistent with the town plan of development. So that's really what we're doing here. I'm not sure the grading and filling permit is absolutely necessary, but it's in the application just in case. So here's the overview. As I mentioned, we make this fully conforming in the lot configuration requirements of the R1/5 zone. And this is how the zoning map is laid out. This is the GIS map with the zone, the zoning laid out in color. The lots on the map are all shown in red or with red boundaries, and this light colored parcel right in the middle is the subject property. It's the Bongiorno's property. And you can see just by looking at this that it's exactly the same size as the rest of these soldiers off to the right, but it happens to be in the R1/2 zone for some reason. Just by way of history, this is a 1954 map. I put this up here for the scale or for the legend here. But what I'll show you here is where this zone boundary used to be. And you can see here that there's a area. These are not boundaries, the vertical lines. That's the shading for the zone. And the zone went right up to the intersection of Bailey. For some reason, in the current map, it backed away. It didn't go all the way there, and this one lot got caught in the shuffle. So the point here is historically this was in the same zone as the properties across the street, and back here you'll see the properties again in this whole area are 1/5. So there you go. This is an aerial view of the site before the house was demolished. You could see that the house is lined up with the other houses. This would be a non-conforming front yard under the R1/2 regulations, but it's in line with the other houses that are all conforming to the east here. That's the old house. If you're interested, the driveway is off on the right side, little retaining wall here along the edge. That remains pretty much the same. And if you're interested in what we'd like to do here, let me just blow this up. The proposed dwelling is pretty much in the same location as the existing house, which is in this kind of lighter gray outline. The proposed house is larger, but it complies with the building coverage and other area and bulk requirements. The good news is you now get a 50-year stormwater system, new catch basins along in the driveway here, minimal grading along the side here and along the back end of the pool. The infiltrators are off to here. Everything gets piped back to the infiltrators. The accompanying engineering report or engineering summary documents all of the required stormwater analysis, et cetera. I think that once this zone, if the commission approves the zone change on this, the rest of it's an over-the-counter permit, subject, of course, to this little minor grading thing if the staff determines that the applicant needs a permit for that. And that's it. Our two-story house elevations, modest house. And I just have a couple of minor points to make here. Again, the proposal or project will comply with all the area and bulk regulations. They're getting an engineered drainage system. The DPW comments are going to be addressed, the few of them, in the process of submitting for zoning and building permits, which would happen anyway in an over-the-counter situation. And as I mentioned, site grading is very minimal. Less than a foot for most of it. It might reach 1.5 feet or 2 feet in a couple of spots, but that's basically it. So short presentation. It's really primarily a zoning map amendment that is intended to bring this lot into compliance with the adjacent lots across to the east and the lots across the street. And that's what I have.
Great. And just for the record, we, all the neighbors were notified because this is a zone change plus the hearing, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mailings in the file.
To make it file. So the guy next door knows that he's subject to a zoning change for the lot on the other side.
Yep.
It is a rare case that we downzone properties from 1/2 to 1/5, but we've done it many times before. And I do see your 1950s map where it was where it was, and now it's not where it was. So I'm okay. Any questions from any commissions on this application? Carrie, you want to go first?
No questions. I just want to, thank you, Bob. That was a really thorough and great presentation. I appreciate that, highlighting like Chairman Albani did, the prior zone boundary lines. And I think it was really helpful also to point out that in our town plan of conservation development, that, having this, increasing conformity and having non-conforming lots become conforming is something that, we have an interest in doing. So I think that was really helpful, pointing that all out. And I don't really have any questions at this point. I just appreciate the presentation and the
Thank you.
thoroughness.
Yeah, the documentation from the plan of development is in the application itself. I didn't want
Yep.
to take
No,
up.
I saw it. I appreciate it. It was good. Thank you.
Thank
Jim Rand, did you raise your hand on that one? You just saying hi? Okay, you're good. Jeff Paul, you okay? Okay, where's Adam? He's got a thumbs up. And where is George? George's light's on.
Yep, good presentation, no questions, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Anyone in the general public like to speak to this application? I don't see anybody jumping up and down, which is good. And then to follow, we do have in the record, we have a memo from Darren Ostafan dated January 26th. There is 9 items and bullet points. Some are his standard ones that, just goes with what he says. All this stuff can get taken care of, right, Jeremy?
Yes.
Yep, we're all set with that. I think that's it. Anything else to add, Bob, before we try to close this?
No, that's it. I'll finish this one up. I know we got another one after this.
Fantastic. With that said or not said, I would entertain a motion to close this hearing. Kara makes a motion, Rand makes a second. All those in favor? 6. Hearing's closed. Jim Rand made the second. You're welcome, Bonnie. It's nice to have Bonnie back, everybody.
Yeah.
If you haven't met Bonnie yet, she's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
What's up next? All right, next time on the agenda, coastal site plan review number 366, flood stabilization application number 419, land filling regrading application number 525, Leslie Sutton at 223 Long Neck Point Road. Proposal to raise the existing residence, construct a new single-family dwelling with an attached carriage house in the generally the same location, construction of a new driving patio area and retaining walls to perform related site development activities within regulated areas, including regrading the property and installation of a stormwater management. The 1.32 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the east side of Long Neck Point Road, approximately 0.33 miles south of its southernmost intersection with Pear Tree Point Road, and showed in assessor's map number 61 as lot 10-4, and is located in R1 zone. Yeah, R1 zone, got it. Jeremy, what do we got?
This is a replacement house on Long Neck Point Road. is over an acre in size. Because it's on the coast, we referred this to State of Connecticut DEP. And in your packet, you have an email dated February 2nd from Jamie Fedoriak. He basically had two comments. One was requiring sediment and erosion controls, which should be maintained throughout the construction process, which is a typical condition of the planning. And the other refers to the riprap outlet, which is, I'll call it waterward of the house. And she emphasized that care needs to be taken to make sure that doesn't get damaged in floods. Darren Ostafine also commented on the application, noting it's a public street opening permit were required for a new driveway, and the existing the sewer, but the new house site. Then the work in the flood zone, minimal work in the flood zone. There's an embankment there that they're really staying out of in construction. So minimal on flooding and minimal regrading. Attorney Bob Maslin's here, along with engineering.
Mr. Maslin, welcome.
Okay, I guess I can, yeah, you can hear me. All right. Good evening again, Attorney Robert Maslin here representing Leslie Sutton, who is here. I saw her before on the video. She's the applicant and the property owner. Property's been in the family for quite some time. Property is located on the east side of Long Neck Point Road, south of Pear Tree Point Road, almost probably a little more than halfway to the point from there. With me tonight are Brendan Boatwright of McAlpine, I think that's how you say it, Architecture, Harry Roachfield from McCord Engineering, Catherine Herman from Catherine Herman Design. That may be one N in her name instead of two, and I'll let her clarify that. What I thought I'd do, Mr. Chairman, well, as I usually do, I have this overview slide. I'll go through briefly what the existing conditions are, and then Harry will talk about the site engineering. Then the architect will go over the architecture briefly, and then finish up with the landscape plan, if that's okay.
That's fine. Just one real quick question for Jeremy. Did EPC have to look at this one?
Nope, there's no inland wetlands involved.
Great, thank you. That sounds good, Bob. Thank you.
We're at coastal site plan review, and I know the trend and sort of it's becoming a custom where even though almost all of the activities are more than 100 feet from mean high water, the only part of this project that's within 100 feet of mean high water is the basically the underground stormwater detention system and the riprap outlet structure. So that's the coastal site plan review. The rest of it, the new house and all of the other improvements are landward of that 100-foot line. The flood damage prevention permit, this is minimal at best. The only aspect of this project that's within a flood zone or hazard zone, flood zone V. And that is actually a few feet of pipe underground and the outlet structure that I mentioned. And that's down along the water within the V zone. There is no A zone on this site. Transitions from an elevation 15 flood zone directly to flood zone X, according to FEMA. And the land filling and regrading is nothing really significant other than regrading the site as necessary for the development. So for the existing conditions, aerial view of the site and some of the neighboring properties here, you probably recognize these two properties here that were subdivided some time ago, and there were new construction there. I think this is another new construction project. And if we go to the close-up, you'll see going from right to left, you have a rocky and kind of sandy shorefront with a stone riprap area along the coastline. Then you have manicured lawn, a little wall here, more manicured lawn, an old house, trees on either side, and a question mark shaped driveway, direct access to Long Neck Point Road. The house right now is on septic. It's going to be connected to the sewer as part of this project. So for this part, let me just kind of focus in on what we're really talking about. This is the riprap area along the coast, the little stairway down here. This line, this kind of grayish line, is the boundary between flood zone VE and flood zone X. The 100-foot cam line is up here, farther to the west. And then we have existing stone walls. So really, right now, there's nothing significant other than manicured lawn right along the coast here. So now, this is a zoning location survey showing proposed conditions, and these two jurisdictional lines are here. And with all of that, Harry, you want to take it away for now? And if you need me to point to something on here, I'm happy to do that.
Sure, thank you, Bob. Harry Roachville, Special Engineer in the state of Connecticut with McCord Engineering. Bob, if you could just zoom in a little bit, that'd be great. Perfect. So as Bob mentioned, this is a tear down rebuild project. The proposed house is located in generally the same location as the existing house. Same for the driveway, besides just a minor reconfiguring. It's going to be a proposed 3-bedroom house. As Bob mentioned, there is an existing septic system that will be abandoned. The existing septic tank will be crushed, and that will all be done per state of Connecticut Public Health Code. We will tie into a low pressure system on Long Neck Point Road. There is already the curb box there for the connection, I believe, as there was some call before you dig painting pointing into our property. So that will be confirmed with DPW at the time of construction, but I believe the connection point is already there. Drainage will be accomplished by creating a sort of a modest high point in the center of the driveway here, as it is a generally flat front yard. So we want to create some positive pitch to move the drainage along the driveway towards our drainage structures and away from the neighboring properties. Currently, all of the runoff essentially runs down to the Long Island Sound from west to east, and we will be conforming to those existing conditions by roading all the driveway runoff. First with a driveway drain at the beginning of the apron. That'll be routed to a smaller detention system in the front yard, which will have a high level overflow that will connect to the other driveway drains, and eventually all make its way to the detention system located in the rear yard. Along with the driveway runoff, we will also be capturing the entire house. Those roof leaders will all be routed to the same detention system. And the one other thing we'll be capturing is there's a little portion of the property to the north that drains down towards our property. It's nothing major, just sort of a natural low point that happens between our property and their property. Not a big area at all. We will be putting some drains over there as well, just to mitigate any ponding that may occur during storms up against our proposed house. So that will also be routed to the proposed detention system in the rear yard. As we are on the shore in a coastal area here, we have designed for the first flush volume in which the detention system is sized to accommodate the first inch of all the impervious surfaces that drain to it. The detention system will have a high level overflow that will be directed to the riprap outlet that Bob had mentioned earlier. I know that DEP said that outlet was within the flood zone, and that is a little confusing, as I'm sure as you guys are all well aware, that the FEMA flood zone lines aren't entirely too accurate with the topography. The flood elevation here at this property is elevation 15. Our outlet will be at elevation 18. So we have no concern of any flood waters backing up through our drainage pipes. To that same riprap outlet, we will have a gravity footing drain from footing drains around the house, and that'll also be routed to the same riprap outlet by gravity, and no sump pump needed here. We were able to achieve gravity flow. As DEP had mentioned, erosion controls are required on all projects, especially on the coast. We have silt fence surrounding the entire area of disturbance. We have a stockpile area located in the front yard, which will also be surrounded with silt fence. And we have a construction anti-tracking pad where the existing curb cut is to mitigate any dirt being brought on off and on the site during construction and getting into the drainage system on Long Neck Point Road. Underground utilities with electrical and town water service will run around the driveway to the existing residence. There'll be a small retaining wall in the backyard to create a level lawn area off of east of the covered porch with a small patio that will run off over about 120 feet of lawn before that reaches the riprap outlet into Long Island Sound. We determined that the amount of lawn that small patio will go through will be sufficient for the water quality purposes of that small amount of runoff before it reaches the Long Island Sound. That essentially wraps up the site plan. It's a pretty straightforward one. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any commissioners may have.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I've got questions on the house or the development. Is that going to be you or is that going to be somebody else?
Well, the architect's here for the house.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Brendan Boatwright, and I'm the project manager with McAlpin Architecture.
Fantastic.
Shall we move on, Steve, or do you want to see if anybody has questions about the site plan?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Does anyone have questions on the site plan? McCord's been here before. It looks like that retaining wall is not really moving too far, the one that exists today. You know, and all the Cultex and water retention stuff looks like it's in proper order and whatnot. I was just gonna ask about the basement levels for the garage that affects the site plan, but I think we're built on that. But questions from commissioners on site plan at this point? Wave your hand, smile. I think we're good. Keep moving, Bob. Next.
Quick, Harry, you want to just comment on the footing drains? Well, Steve mentioned it.
It's got to do with it. I was trying to see if the garage is on a slab and the other portion, I think it's a screened-in porch, is a slab. I'm just looking at the basement plan of the architecturals, and I'm just trying to make sure that all that stuff's got covered.
Yeah, from our perspective, Chairman, we do have footing drains around the whole house, and we're able to achieve gravity flow to our outlet. So, in the basement is above the flood zone, so no concerns on our end as far as the basement goes.
Great, thank you. Okay. Next,
Brendan, you're up.
All right. Well, as it's fairly clear, the site is going to remain largely undisturbed outside of the immediate area around the existing house, and they're basically in the exact same location. Since we already did the site stuff, yeah. So the house is sort of it's sort of an English cottage style house with a machine, or excuse me, with a hand split cedar roof and a mix of leaded glass and wood windows and stone and shiplap siding. So it's kind of a rustic old world feel, almost like maybe something you'd see like a 1920s kind of cottage in that part of Connecticut. We meet all of our height restrictions, and it's within all of the setbacks. And yeah, the goal is just to have this be as charming of a coastal kind of English style cottage as we can do. The house is fairly modest in size, especially for the lot, and I think our total square footage heated above grade is somewhere around 4,400. So not terribly big.
Okay, that was some of my thresholds. It's 3 bedrooms. How many bathrooms in it?
There are 3.5 bathrooms.
Okay. And then the house is 4,400 square feet, or the house and the carriage house is 4,400 square feet?
That the heated portion above grade would be 4,477, and the carriage house, I believe, is an additional 450. I need to verify the carriage house number, but it should be on the first floor plan.
Okay, with regards to the height of it, I'm just gonna make sure Jeremy is on the same page, because he always likes to say this. The height of the building is, I think it's 29.76 feet. So you're 0.24 feet from the 30-foot max. And nothing changes on these ones, right? Like, every once in a while, you say that you're touching up against it and make sure.
Coverage in terms of height overall.
Okay, I mean, it says right on the plan, it's existing, so it conforms, which is fine. With regards to the carriage house or garage, whatever we're calling it, I think the plans go back and forth 2 different ways. Is it a 1-car garage? Is it a 2-car garage? Is the second floor finished? It says open to below. Can it be, is it gonna be an ADU someday? We don't have ADUs in town yet, but we might someday.
So it's a 1-car garage, and the second floor is going to be unfinished with a pull-down stair, and it's actually not tall enough to be habitable. It's essentially, you can only stand up right when you're directly under the ridge line. So there's no chance of it being converted into any sort of living space.
That's too bad. We may have ADUs in town someday.
Some storage.
You got storage in the basement too. You got a lot of storage down in the basement.
Yeah.
Okay. So the basement is partially finished. You got a craft room. You have a mechanical area, and then just a stair hallway.
Yes,
And then
a large storage space.
Big
Yeah.
storage. Could you ever put a bedroom down in the basement, or because you have to have fire exit for that, right?
No, and there's not going to be any plumbing in the basement either. So I don't, no. And so we don't actually have, we're looking at a bulkhead door as a secondary exit, but there's no windows, so we would never do a bedroom.
Okay. Is there a bulkhead down there? Door?
We're currently showing a bulkhead. If you see on the right side of this plan, near the mechanical room entrance.
Yep.
And we're thinking of moving it to the opposite side of the house on the northern end.
Okay.
And so that's still in discussion, but it likely might end up where it accesses directly to the storage room.
Got it. Is there an elevator in this thing?
There is an elevator.
There is an elevator. Yeah, it's in the middle. It's next to the.
Yep.
Yep, I thought so. All right, cool. I think I got it. Any commissioners have any questions on this one? We're talking architecture for the house now. Looks like everyone's good. Are we gonna do the landscape plan? Is that next?
I have one if you're interested.
There you
There's
go.
no landscaping required because it's a single-family house, so whatever landscaping they put in,
It is what it is.
it is what it is.
If you want to have Catherine give us the landscaping, we'll blow through that real quick. I'm sure she's proud of what she designed. I'm staring at her.
Sure she is. Catherine, do you have
Smile on her face. There she is.
Hi, Catherine Herman of Catherine Design. I think, excuse me, I think Harry covered a lot of it, but just to touch on it, we are making a bit of a minor shift in the shape of the driveway. The driveway opening is going to remain essentially right where it is. And then we have reconfigured the parking in front of the house so that it relates better, to the presented architecture and the new detached garage carriage house, if you will. We are looking to preserve all the very beautiful mature trees that are on the property. So we've been very mindful about that. There's a great magnolia on the property, some maples, and there's a really beautiful cedar that would be at the back of the house. So there's been a lot of care to make sure that we're keeping all of those large trees. We have no plans for any sort of landscape, just to maintain the lawn that's at the back of the house. There is a very subtle change to that back retention wall. And I'm not sure you can quite see it on this plan, but essentially the new wall will replace the existing wall, which is in poor condition. And so we're using that as an opportunity just to straighten it out and have it relate to the architecture, and allow for, nice circulation around the back. And we've added 2 little small staircases that take you down to the lower level, as opposed to the one that is currently existing. But everything is outside of that 100-foot CAM review area. Plantings on the house, there'll certainly be some layering, a little bit more than what's there, to really make this house feel, nestled into the landscape. And there's currently an arborvitae hedge that is along the property line. We are looking to replant that and actually get it onto the property line. Currently, it sits askew to it. So we're just looking to put it back to maintain that sense of privacy between the neighbors. And I think that covers it, unless anybody has questions.
The only other question I had was just any lighting? Can I be able to see this house at night from my boat when I'm out in the water?
There is, I think it's fair to say that we will do some outdoor lighting. Very minimal, though.
And the stuff that's going to be on the lounge will be low, low surface stuff?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
You want us to put a lighthouse up so you can keep your bearings?
My kid fishes out in front of this thing all the time. At least I know where he is. Any other questions for the commissioners on this aspect of the application? We just did the site plan, we did the house, and we did the landscaping plan. I don't see anybody jumping up and down. Fantastic. All right, great. Sounds like you did a great job.
And
Anybody?
Just to wrap up.
I was going to open the general public real quick.
Okay.
Anyone in the general public want to speak to this application? Seeing none, we got that out of the way. Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to go through these few additional items. DEEP commented with an email. Harry covered this in his comments. I think one point to remember is this riprap outlet is going to be incorporated into the existing riprap along the coastline. So there's really, there shouldn't be much of a there with respect to the V zone. If you look carefully at the survey, you'll see the boundary of the V zone is at about elevation 20, but the V zone elevation is only 15. So if there is a fudge factor here, it's to the detriment, I guess, of the property owner to be on the cautious side. So there should be no concern at all about the location of the flood boundary or any of the work relative to flood zone. Darren's comments 1, 2, 3, and 5 are his usual summarize the project comment. Number 4 mentioned sewer. Yes, we're connecting and we'll get all the necessary permits. Item number 6, Harry mentioned this, but just so it's clear, we are asking for a waiver of the fresh meadow approach under section 888, which is fairly common as long as you have appropriate water quality in place. Drainage reporting form, that's a fairly new phenomenon, and we have the forms, and Harry will take care of that in due course as we move forward. And the as-built drawings, that tends to be a standard requirement in the more significant projects lately, and that's not a problem. So that's really it. I think we've covered everything, and if there are any other lingering questions, we're happy to try to answer them for you.
Great. The only thing we have to do in some way, shape, or form is the public notice has this thing at 1.32 acres. Everything we've seen says it's 1.284 acres. Do we care? Okay. So we're all in agreement that it's 1.284 acres, not 1.32. So the public notice was off by a couple of seconds.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Doing that.
Anything else we're gonna do, ready to close? Jeremy's all set. All right, commissioners, we're all good? With that said or not said, I'd entertain a motion to close. Jeff Balls makes the motion, Adam makes the second. All those in favor? 6-0. Fantastic.
You mean I did 3 of these in an hour and a half?
You go, Bob. Plus
Good.
we
Bob, is that a record?
I guess. I don't know.
You're the research guy. Come on, you should know.
Actually 4, but 1 we didn't do.
Okay.
Standard is set, Bob.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
You're
Bob.
All right.
Thank you.
I think that is the end of the public hearing. Now we're going to go into general meeting. A couple quick general meeting items. First item of the general meeting is subdivision application number 424C as in Charlie, coastal site plan number 360, land filling regrading application number 512, the Tweedy property at 108 near Water Lane. Request for extension to file the subdivision Mylar map until May 13, 2022. We have a letter in the file. On behalf of my clients, we respectfully request a 90-day extension of time to file the subdivision map to May 13, 2022. We do this all the time. Any questions, Jeremy?
No, we support the extension.
Fantastic. Staff supports the extension. I support the extension. Anybody have any questions on this one? Nope. Okay. With that said or not said, I'd entertain a motion to support it. Carrie Gately makes a motion. George Raleigh makes the second. All those in favor? 6-0. Wiley, you got your 90 days. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Special permit application number 322, land filling or regrading application number 520. Anthony, can you help me with that? Anthony Chellis, revocable trust at 320 Brookside Road. Proposal to construct a 60 by 100 recreational sports court and associated stormwater management on the existing side of the property and form related site development activities. We heard this hearing a while ago, and we have a draft resolution in our packets. It was a pretty straightforward application. I don't know if I was actually there at the application thing. I don't think I was at this one.
Yeah, the only change, staff's just gonna double check the property owner, make sure we have that right. Other than that is straightforward draft solution. You can see in condition C, no lighting or PA system. We need a zoning and building permit to construct it. And since there's drainage associated with it, there's a requirement for final verification from the engineer on the drainage.
Okay, questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one? Everybody take a second to eyeball it one more time. We got a few of these in town, and they're actually kind of cool. They're all year-round pickup courts and basketball courts and tennis courts. I didn't see anything that jumped out on me. Anybody else have any errors, questions, comments? Staff's doing a great job typing these things. Okay. With that said, I'd entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Jim Rand makes the motion. George Raleigh makes the second. All those in favor? Looks like we got Jeff Ball. Did you vote yet or no? 6-0.
You weren't at the hearing, Steve?
No, it was not at the hearing. I read it.
Okay.
Okay. But why don't you just make me abstain? Do it 5-1.
5-0, Steve.
5-0, Stephen O'Malley abstains. Okay, got that, Bob? Fantastic. Next item on the agenda, land filling and regrading application number 522, Nicholas and Tracy Young at 249 Tokenique Road. Proposal to regrade the western portion of the property to create a level yard and perform related site development activities. Here again, we have another draft resolution in our packet. This is what I call the people that have soccer fields in their backyards and they want to level them out. What's the matter, Carrie? You okay?
No, you lost audio. We couldn't hear you.
I did?
Yep.
Can you hear me now? I think everyone can hear me now. Jim, I got thumbs up. Cool. All right. Then I'll say it again. Draft resolution for landfilling regrading application number 522, Nicholas and Tracy Young at 249 Tokenique Road. Proposal to regrade the western portion of the property to create a level yard and perform related site development activities. We heard this application on January 25th. We deliberated. It's people that have non-level yards want to put soccer fields in their backyards. Questions, comments, typos, Scrivener's errors on this one? Jim Rand saying no. Take another minute to take a quick look at it. Any special thing wanted here? Number 3 is talks about chipping. You really know that chipping of ledge rock and establishment shall result in reduction of water runoff. So we can do a little bit of chipping there. Okay. Darren asked to finds. This stuff like this, we don't need an as-built survey. Right? Just making it.
Right, they're just
It's 11 yards.
getting rid of some rock, making it a gently sloping lawn. If the commission wants topographic map.
No,
We're not changing the direction of the water flow, which was the key.
So your provision at E does provide for an as-built for the contours.
There you go.
Yes, thank you, George.
And Jeremy already got it in there. They forgot. I didn't see it. So as-built survey. Got it. So you have to do an as-built survey. Good.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, George, for noting that again, so everyone's on the same page. Questions, comments, Scrivener's errors, nothing. With that said, it's in a motion to approve as submitted. George Riley makes the motion. Jim Rand makes the second. All those in favor? Except we got 6-0 again. I'm gonna do another. I wasn't at this hearing here. Okay. Okay. Next, last but not least, well, not last, but we have a couple more after this stuff. Next is the site. Kara, this is going to go into 3 Parklands. You're going to check off. Do you want to come back? Do you want to come back for the discussion of the affordable housing plan? Or you want to watch it on TV?
In the affordable, that discussion, but I may fall asleep, but if I'm awake, I'll come back on.
You can watch it on. You can watch it on TV.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not being disrespectful. I think it's a really, really, really important discussion, and obviously it's statutorily required. But more importantly, it's an important thing to do, and it adds a lot of value both to the town and to the entire state. So I think it's an important conversation, but I can't promise I'll be back.
And where is I did see Dave Keating, right? He's going to present this, isn't he?
Yep.
There he is. Okay, great. All right.
All right.
The next item on the agenda is site plan application number 309, special permit application number 42I, land filling and regrading application number 516, Parklands Darien LLC, 1 Parklands Drive and 3 Parklands Drive. I'm going to not read the entire text again, so I think I've read
I'm
it.
just going to say that I'm recusing myself. So once again, so bye, everybody.
Thank you, Kara. Sorry about that. I'm not going to read the entire text of the application again because I think I've read it 6 times already. Okay, so for starters, last week, at the end of the week, and in our packets, we have a draft resolution dated February 15th, so that's next week. In these big applications, a lot of times for commissioners that are quasi-new to the commission, we usually get these electronically, and maybe not electronically, read them a couple times and black line them, and then I'll come back next week for other changes. And maybe if we review it tonight with questions, I would definitely be brutally honest with you. The whole thing is 21 pages. I've read it again. I've read it once or twice, but I would like to read it again. But I definitely want to listen to Jeremy, listen to staff, go through it, answer anybody's questions. If anybody on the commission went through it with a fine tooth comb and have a lot of errors, that's fine. The other thing that we typically do too is if you have handwritten or black lined comments, just send them in to staff, and they can incorporate those versus going through it line by line. George, I see you waving your hand too.
I have to say, and I was actually looking for the draft, and I don't believe I have it. I have looked in my packet, as I say, expecting to find it and not finding it. Anybody else have that problem?
It was emailed out on Thursday.
Oh, okay, it's not in the packet? All right, okay, then I will have it. Thank you. I'll get it. Obviously,
It was just sent via email.
Okay.
All right. So then we're definitely not going to sign it because you didn't read it yet. You're a lord. I like.
Did that come to mind?
It's like you looking at this stuff.
Yeah. My DarienCT.gov account isn't working, but you usually send it to my other one, don't you, Fred or somebody? I'll check. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. This was written up as an approval with modifications and conditions. So you want to go through it first? You want to?
We'll talk a little bit. I'll talk generally about what is with any of these.
Hold on one second. Can everybody hear Jeremy perfectly? Commissioners? Yes. Okay, go ahead.
With any of these draft resolutions, the commission has to make certain findings relative to the application. In this case, it's both plan and special permit and land filling and regrading. So to touch on at least those issues relative to the application. So as you may recall, some of the topics in the draft findings relate to traffic and parking and landscaping and planting and the general background about the application, what the application's all about. Talks a little bit about some of the things that were presented during the hearing and tries to summarize some of the conversations in terms of the applicant's presentation, the peer reviewer, whether that was in stormwater or Mike Galante, traffic and parking. And it also discusses some of the neighbors' issues and concerns which were brought up during the 9 hours of public hearing. So that's all really in the findings aspects. And you may recall that the commission has to make certain findings relative to section 1005 of the application, which are the special permit standards. So that's all in, I'll call it the first half of the draft resolution. The second half really deals with the conditions of approval. What specific conditions and modifications can the commission make such that they can make the requisite findings? So usually condition A of these types of approval deals with what specific plans are being approved and what specific changes are the commission making to the plans. We're talking the conditions of approval relative to sediment erosion controls, relative to lighting, landscaping, traffic and parking improvements, if you will, other required improvements and installations. The requirement, as we talked about with the last application, as-built surveys, other drainage certifications, for example, that are important to the commission. Talk about blasting, limits and restrictions on blasting and construction hours. So it is, Danny acknowledged, the draft resolution gets very lengthy as you start covering these various topics and issues and making sure that they're addressed in the resolution. So I don't know if you have any specific questions or concerns. Certainly, the decision deadline is February 16th. So we'll come back to this next Tuesday night to give the commission a little more time to digest it. Certainly, if you have issues or concerns, call myself or Fred, and we can assist in addressing your question, finding the answer amongst the voluminous application materials that were submitted, trying to, if there's issues you think need to be addressed either differently or in more detail in the resolution, let us know that as well. The goal here is to prepare a document in which a majority of the 5 of you can agree upon or vote for in whatever form that might be. As I said, if you need more details in certain aspects or have questions or want follow-up, again, the advantage we have is we have the entire file at hand and can sit and do the research necessary in the file in an effort to get something into your packet this Thursday afternoon that you can read over the weekend and be prepared to vote on Tuesday the 5th.
Okay. There's a couple of things. This was written up as a an approval, and then at the beginning it says in block 1 that's going to be it's going to be reduced to 57 units. Some of the math I think has to get fixed because I think it's 29 plus 26 plus 6 equals, yeah. And item 1, it says it's got 26 plus 29 plus, it's up to 61.
Yeah, we noticed that
Okay.
this afternoon. That's we need to take the number right off. There's a sheet of the plans that has that. But again, reducing that.
Right. Then on page 4, just as another, we have to make sure this matches up. Second sentence says that hereby commission finds 7 of the 55 approved units equals 55.
We laid that issue as well.
Okay. So at the end of the day, my recommendation at the beginning was to reduce it by 10%, which would have gotten from 60 down to 54. I think 2 other commissioners want to reduce it by 33% and get it from 60 down to 40. So this was written up as 57 or 55 at this point in time. I think Commissioner Adam, I apologize. I have a tough time always pronounce your last name, Adam. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's Balgash.
Balgash, sorry about that. Commissioner Balgash, I think he wanted to make sure that we maintained the number of affordable units. This is written up as 7 affordables and 57 total, or 7 affordables and 55 total. I was at a deal today where it's Norwalk is a little bit different than Darien. That developer that built that project, it's 10%. They rounded up versus rounding down. I don't think Norwalk has deed in lieu. Has payment in lieu, so you can't pay a portion. You have to round up. What else? With regards to the height, any thoughts on that at this point in time?
We did not include anything in the draft resolution relative to height. The height does comply with the DOMR overlay zone, but we'll have to take a look. I do not recall anything, Fred, chime in if I'm wrong, anything with regard to height. I do have the architectural plans, which I can look to, just to take a double check on that and kind of look at the floor to ceiling heights and what's there, but it does appear that it complies with the height requirements.
Right, but I'm going back to section 1005, whatever you call it, 2005. With regards to the height, and some of you commissioners were on the commission at the time, and some may not have been. When we did Palmer's and we did Federal and we did the Corbin District thing, we bantered back and forth with height for hours and hours and hours. Now we're starting to see some of these projects come out of the ground, and you can see the height. I remember distinctively, the Corbin District started out as 7 stories, and the developer listened to our comments and questions and concerns and got it down. They also had one of the 3 projects, I forget which one, had 9.5-foot ceilings, and they really wanted 9.5-foot ceilings. And I think we got them to shrink it down to, I think they made a 9-foot ceilings and 11-foot between floors. They shrunk it down by 6 inches because they squeezed the space between floors. So if you have 3 stories and you can squeeze it down by 6 inches of floor, you can get the height down a little bit. We try to make sure it's in harmony with the neighborhood too. And yes, does it meet the height district? Yeah. With regards to, I want to call phase one of the Corbin district, they had their height and then they came back later and they redesigned it and the height went up by a foot or something like that. Remember when they had the dormers and the guy that was building the old gas station guy, he wanted the height to come out. So they looked at it when we peaked it or something like that. We changed it by a couple inches. David Genovese came back on that, but that's something that we're still looking at the plans. And may be able to make some modifications or recommendations and whatnot on that. Anything else that jumps off the page to you, Jeremy, before I open up to the rest of the commission?
No.
Okay. Fred, anything jumps off the page in any of your discussions at this point in time?
No, I don't think so. I think Jeremy covered the overview of how we've drafted the resolution pretty well. At this point, commission members have specific questions about certain elements of the approval as it's written currently. We can of course address those items.
Okay.
But really nothing more to add at this point.
Okay. And at the end of the day, it's we're trying to get a draft resolution that's satisfactory to the majority of the approval, which at the end of the day it needs 3 votes to get through. So I'm going to open up to each one of you. George Riley, I know you're at a little bit of a disadvantage because you didn't see the electronic copy sent to you yet. But do you want to go first and give us your overview thoughts again on it, or you want to just go ahead?
Thanks for that. Yeah, and unfortunately, I still don't find it in my email, but I'll get it. I'm sure, Fred, you could resend it to me tomorrow, and that's fine. I would just add a couple of things. You've heard me a couple of times about my concern for Selleck's Woods. I remain surprised that the Land Trust expresses support for this. Park and Rec expressed support for this when I think there's going to really be an intensification of use there. I think I may have referred to it as an attractive nuisance at some point. I just see the prospect of a certain element that will find its location to be desirable for activities that we aren't necessarily looking to encourage. And I've also commented that I understand there's slow infiltration and that whatever flow off of the subject site into Selleck's Woods and Dunlop Lake or Pond is also detrimental. I also want to comment that we heard some input from folks about the consistency with the plan of conservation and development. I think it's worth noting, and I think their names were the Conways, whom I don't know, so I'm not playing to favorites, but they commented how this project is really not walkable to trains. I think that's fair to say. I think it'd be like a mile and a half or so away. A bus would be handier, but I don't see a lot of Darien folks walking first to the bus and then to the train who will be resident in these apartments. I certainly think there's just going to be higher intensity of use. They commented that we are not preserving open space by having a larger edifice on this property. So I think those are concerns as well. So my bottom line is that intensification of use. I think it needs to be smaller. And I think there are a number of flaws in the plan that would support denying it. That's where I'm coming.
Thank you. If there's anything in the resolution that you think needs to be tweaked, whether you're vote for it or vote against it, those comments are always definitely taken and added in, because I think everybody's voice on the commission needs to be recognized in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
Just going to some other items on here before I go to the next commissioner. Item T is in Tom on the resolution side. It says that they're going to post an surety bond for the full value installation of the stormwater management. There's X's in there. We don't know how much that number is going to be yet. I think that some staff's going to take care of. So it's not a number for us to pick out of the sky. Staff is going to use their professional opinion and numbers to figure that out. And also, we don't really get into the numbers when we do it. The bond may be released by the town 18 months following the issuance of a TCO for the building staff. So we are getting this through at least one full year after the temporary certificate of occupancy was done. Just so people know, when you do a TCO, they can do it by floor, or they can do it by sections of the building, the way that fire doors match up. You can do, 1, 2, 3 floors on the east side, or the whole first floor, second floor. It depends how the fire doors go. I've seen it both ways in deals that I've done on. You can get a TCO for the 3 units on the ground floor, and that's when the clock would start.
Steve?
Go ahead, Fred. Yep, go ahead, sir.
Yep, just because we're talking about bonds here, the way that this is written up currently is that the applicant's engineer shall submit an estimate for the proposed work to substantiate the value of the bond. So we have bonds for both the stormwater aspects of the plan as well as the landscaping portions of the plan. And both of those values are substantiated by an estimate to be provided by the applicant.
Okay, and that's item T as in Tom. Is there a second different paragraph for the other aspect?
T specifically relates to the stormwater bond. The landscape bond is
For a career, how many medals she's gotten in the past, how many world championship medals.
Oh, hold on. There's a couple, I'm sorry, hold on one second, Fred. There's a couple callers that are online named 7, 8, and 9. Can you guys mute your phones if you don't mind? Or somebody can mute there. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. You were saying, Fred?
Condition M is related to the landscaping bond.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
We're also giving the applicant, as it's currently written, the option to post an surety bond for the full value of the work to be performed versus a performance bond, which would, let's see, the way that we've written it here. Alternatively, the applicant may post a performance bond with the town for the installation of plantings in the amount of 10% of the full installation cost. So they can post a performance bond for 10% of the total costs, or an surety bond for the full value of the work.
Okay, and then the bond gets reduced by 50% after the first growing season, and then the other 50% gets released after the second growing season?
The way it's currently written is the bond may be released by the town after 1 year. 1 year after all the required plantings have been installed, and can be reduced by up to 50% after 1 growing season.
Okay. So when's the other 50% go?
The 50% would be released after a full year.
Is that right? Okay, but when's the other 50% go?
We can put it in the resolution to make it clear.
Okay. And then can you just tell me a little bit with regards to item W, the applicant spends or the expense of the town? Payers shall arrange for the applicant's expense or expense of the town. Oh, that's just the application fees. I got it. Okay.
Yeah, this condition is specifically related to any.
That's the third-party engineers as time goes on.
Hold on 1 minute.
Yep.
Right, so we're requiring, condition W is related to having the commission's peer review engineer, Joe Canis of Ty and Bond, review the construction plans submitted by the applicant relative to the stormwater management plan. And also have Mr. Canis review the as-built survey and conditions provided by the applicant prior to issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy. So have Joe review those items relative to stormwater as opposed to planning and zoning staff reviewing those items. And the portion that we've highlighted in yellow here, the planning and zoning department shall arrange at the applicant's expense or the expense of the town. So that's really a question for the commission. Does the commission wish to have the applicant foot that bill for Joe's review, or will the town foot that bill for Joe's review?
Okay. Let me ask you a question, which is a general question. With regards to the applicant versus the eventual builder of this thing, it may be the same person, it may not be the same person. In the case of,
It wouldn't be the applicant necessarily. It would be probably the person taking out the permit, the building permit, or the property owner.
so is this word fungible?
Yeah, I think we can say instead of applicant, it wouldn't be necessarily this applicant. It would be the property owner or construction company.
Okay.
Or developer, if you will.
Got it. Fred, you heard that?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm alluding to, other commissioners, is a lot of this stuff says the applicant. As you move down in time, the applicant may not be the eventual builder. At the case of one Parklands, the applicant was not the builder. In the case of 77 Leroy, the applicant was not the builder. In the case of Federal and Palmer's, and well, Palmer's not being built yet, so we don't even know. In the case of Federal and Corbin, the applicant is the builder. So the wording, I just want to make sure the wording is fungible, and that it matches up, so we don't get caught in that. Let me just go to some of the other people. Adam, do you have any comments on this draft at this point in time? Heard from George already.
No, I spoke with Fred earlier today, mostly about the clerical errors with the number of units. I noticed the same inconsistencies. So I think that'll get fixed, obviously, in another draft. I don't think the height of the building, is high, but I think that it's going to be tough to get it down from our point of view, anything more than a small amount. So that I don't see any concern there. It is tall, but there's a big building there already that's not being utilized. So that's not a concern. I'm happy to see. I sort of disagree with Commissioner Riley. I think that better and more usage of the Selleck Woods area, it's gorgeous, I think will benefit all of us. That's what our open spaces are for. And Selleck Woods is, I was there this past weekend, it's not a heavily used area at all. So I do generally agree with the support from the friends at Selleck Woods and Dunlop Lake who were in favor of this. So I think it checks that box as well. So, but in terms of the proposal put forth, I've reviewed it a couple times. I think it's in line. I don't know if we can increase the duration of the bond, particularly around the stormwater management system. I know one season that was a concern a number of people raised about the flooding, even though we heard testimony that it does in fact drain the opposite way. I think if we can maybe get that to 2 springs or 2, full years. I think it's somewhat dependent, probably like when it gets built, right? If that's going to matter. I don't know if we can increase it longer, but one season, could be an anomaly, and the next year could be the wettest year we've ever had. And then everybody's complaining about, cracks in their foundations and stuff.
Adam, just to very quickly clarify, the landscaping portion is the 1 year, 1 growing season.
Yeah.
The stormwater bond is 18 months. If you don't think the 18 months is sufficient, we can certainly push that out.
Yeah, that I would like to see be more like 2 years, just because we don't know when the timing of that 18 months will end. And I think it could cover 2 seasons, but it could also not, it could end in June or something, and then we miss all the hurricane season. So yeah, if we can increase that to 2 years, I would think that would be, that would certainly, give the commission a leg to stand on and say, we gave you ample time to show that this is hurting people and you need to figure something out about this, or this stuff that was engineered is engineered properly. But other than that, which I think is minor, and I wasn't sure if that's possible, but if we could, even if we could do something like decrease the, face value of it, this way that we're stepping down the landscaping, and, after 18 months, maybe step down, some other schema like that, I think would be okay with me too.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Ball, what do you say, sir?
I am going to stand with Commissioner Riley on his comments, just because I think that the height is the height. I think that's what we're coming down to. The height is the height. I think the overall building is still too big. The number of units is still too many. I don't know. I just see it as a logistical nightmare in terms of parking down there for people that want to get into Selleck Woods that don't necessarily live there, with the increased traffic and people parking out in those spots that are designated for park goers versus tenants that live in the building. I will say I did drive a very large fire truck down there this past weekend and was able to get into the back. Getting out was a challenge, but hopefully with the loop through in the back that's designated for fire to go through and around, it should and could make things easier. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Jim Rand. I'm sorry, Jim Riley. Wow. Jim Rand.
I'm always hesitant to get into a disagreement with the chairman.
You're more than welcome.
For the edification of those of us who have not been here a long time, the evolution of Corbin was a little bit more sophisticated than what the reduction from 7 floors to 3 floors, or whatever the hell wherever we are now. That's a little bit of an oversimplification. It is true that the height finally approved was less than what was applied for, but the developer accomplished this by spreading the pain around the whole development, with the result, as I recall, and I may be mistaken in this, the number of units remained the same. And that speaks to there's a point at which this project doesn't make financial sense. Now, I know nothing about the project other than what we've seen as a commission. But on the theory that whether it's 1 floor, 2 floors, or 3 floors, it's going to need the same foundation. So that's a sunk cost. And if the project were to be reduced in size by 1/3, that reduces the revenues by 1/3, but does not reduce the expense by 1/3. And my thought is that without any knowledge whatsoever, the developer is unlikely to proceed under those circumstances. Two more thoughts. First, I agree with what Adam said about the bond. My only further suggestion would be to make it clear that there is an objective standard that the project has to meet in order that the bond, I don't want to get into an argument with them 2 years from now. Did we meet this requirement or did we not meet it? There has to be some objective standard. I appreciate I'm making things a little bit more difficult for the staff, and I apologize, but I think that's important. And that's all I got to say about that, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for going.
No, you're quite all right. The 7-story plan was deemed, I want to say, not financially viable by the applicant. That's why they ripped it up and started all over again. But you are correct. And that occupied roof was an August meeting that I came back from there against advance. Okay. If anybody or if everybody could send in either your handwritten scanned comments or your email budgets, or call Fred and Jeremy over the phone. Or if you do a black line, if you're a legalese people and that's easier for you, that'd be great. I'm the kind of person that writes it by hand, scans it and sends it in or gives it to them. Then we'll get a revised version of this next week, right?
Thursday afternoon.
Fantastic. So look for it Thursday afternoon, and maybe Fred would want to just double check that everybody gets it Thursday afternoon. So we don't have to apologize to George Riley. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. I just assumed everybody got it. I'm sorry. All right, next time on the agenda. Okay. It's 10 to 10. So again, I'm going to punt the chairman's report, and we're going to have Dave. In our packet, we have 2 documents from staff for Mr. King. I think he's here. His microphone's on now. We have a first draft of proposed outline of table of contents for Darien Affordable Housing Plan. Then we also have Darien Affordable Housing Plan Community Values Statement Goals, first draft. They're both dated February 3rd. So, Deborah, what are we doing?
Sure. As you may recall, there is a city permit that adopted an affordable housing plan by June of 2022, and we're already in February. So you may recall at the prior meeting, we talked about putting together a website and starting in on the plan. And really to start in on the plan, you may have seen this document on the website, which is called Planning for Affordability in Connecticut, Affordable Housing Plan and Process Guidebook. It was prepared by our consulting firm, RPA, Regional Plan Association. And on page 27, it has Appendix A, Affordable Housing Plan Checklist, which to us really is more of an outline of what they suggest putting in an affordable housing plan in terms of topics to be covered or chapters. And so what we did with this first draft for the proposed lines from the table of contents was used that as a jumping off point, that RPA checklist, the column headings, community value statements, goals, history of affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. And then what we've done in the outline you have is David and I worked on filling that in, taking each of these chapter headings and using it as a skeleton and building off of it with further details in each of those sections. This will propel us forward over the next 3 or 4 months. So as we put together that outline, really the next step for us was to start in on chapter 1, which is community value statements and goals. And I asked Dave to look through 2 documents for that. One is the 2009 Darien Affordable Housing Plan prepared by the Board of Selectmen, as well as the 2016 Town Plan of Conservation and Development. And Dave was able to use the policies and goals in those documents and put them together, if you will, as goals and policies, which the commission's already been, in essence, working with over the past few years. And you'll see that here in that 2-page document. And what we tried to do was pinpoint where the goal already has been, whether that was from the Town Plan of Conservation and Development or from another document. So we wanted to start you off tonight with these 2 pieces. And the goal is to have Dave come back the first week in March. We call it Chapter 2, which is the history of affordable housing and higher density housing in Darien. We expect to talk about that in 3 weeks from now. But tonight, we thought we'd kick it off with these 2 items, the outline, as well as the goals. Looking for any feedback, input from the commission that you may have.
Can we do the goals first?
Sure.
Because I mean, it's usually good to start with what you're trying to achieve, do goals, and then once you figure out the goals is like a mission statement, right?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So, as I said, we looked at 2 documents. In fact, if you look at the first bullet, it's not really a goal. So we'll have to rework that a little bit. But a lot of these, almost all of them are from the Town Plan of Conservation and Development, which is 3rd bullet, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, they're pretty much all from the Town Plan of Conservation and Development in terms of what the commission put together as that document. And I realize not everyone who's on the commission now was part of the commission in 2015, 2016 as we're preparing that. But these are broader in scope, kind of a concept of where we're going as a town. At this point, there's really no specific details, and that will come later as a subsequent part of the document. So these are broad, overreaching, general in nature, kind of a concepts, if you will.
Okay, so this is kind of, these are all marked as, page, POCD, 106, page, this page 7. In the POCD, and I forget, I didn't read, isn't there a selectment statement the first couple of pages?
There is, there's a selectment statement in
the POCD, right?
I think from the selectment statement, I'll have to double check that. In fact, part of it is, which is where you see page 8, that 3rd bullet, that is from the Town Plan Vision Statement for the Board of Selectmen.
Page. Which one?
3rd bullet.
Oh, 3rd row. Okay, good. Thank you. Page, I see what you're saying. Okay, so that's that piece of the puzzle, gentlemen, and Kara's not here. Is Dave going to speak? Or you...
I don't know, Dave, if you have anything to add beyond that, feel free to unmute yourself and chime in.
You're unmuted, Dave. How do you mute caller 1? Dave looks like Dave, you're on, sir. Go ahead, Dave.
Good. I think it's important that the commission review the goals because that indicates that the direction that we need to go in, which will eventually determine what we figure out the strategies to be and then how to implement those strategies. So the goals, the listing of the community values is an important aspect. And this was an opportunity for the commission members to review them, think about them, discuss them, and you might think of other things to be added in the near future. So you can just communicate those to Jeremy. There are some places where we didn't refer to the document from which these statements came because the language got updated a little bit and it wasn't an exact quote from the plan of development or from the Board of Selectmen's affordable housing plan from 13 years ago. And the commission members can choose to delete those references altogether or leave them as they are. And for example, in the fourth statement down, I had that drafted it that some neighborhoods will organically change as buildings get larger and densities increase, but the visual appearance, density, and general character of the majority of the town will or should remain unchanged. When I drafted it, I don't know if you want to leave that phrase will or should the way it is, or if you want to say the general appearance of the town should remain unchanged. And that's a choice that you can tell Jeremy and I how you want it to be.
Can we touch on that 1 second? Because that's the one goal or vision that jumped off the page at me too. I've lived in town for 20 some years. I like the town. I don't want the town to materially change in what it is. I think I'm definitely, I've been saying this for 15 years. I'm into suburban renewal. You know, I think you should demolish one-story buildings in the central business district, which are quote unquote, back in the old days in New York City, they called them taxpayers, and build new stuff on top of it. The other item that I said, yeah, neighborhoods will organically change. I think some neighborhoods, it says get larger and density increase. Some neighborhoods the density may go down and not increase. I mean, I'd have to rack my little head for an example, but one is, you know, when you knock down a school and you put in a park. The town of Darien's done that 4 times, right? They did it at Cherry Lawn, we did it at Baker Field, and we also did it at what's the name of that little street that's behind the middle school where the old senior center was. You know, it's that's not really density relative to housing, but you know, there's certain spots where things may get knocked down and turned into open space. I mean, we took some properties off the market for sale, specifically Highland Farms. If that thing ever hit the market for sale, you would have had 40 houses at Highland Farms. I think it's a 10-acre site in a quarter-acre zone. So that, I mean, that's my first view. Other people, you know, want to drastically change the town, you know, please chime in. Jeremy, me, you know, Dave, no. You know, or some people want to keep it unchanged and keep the character the way it is, or the style the way it is. That's fine too. But I appreciate that. Want to keep moving on? Or...
You know, I think one way to do this would be, as you every month go through a different chapter, is think about these goals and relay it to the chapter. And it could be we end up coming back to chapter 1 and saying at the end of the document, hey, now let's look back and say, does this match up with what we want to do and how we want to do it? So we wanted to kind of lay it out here. If you see anything that you say right away, oh, geez, that's issue or concern, and it could be we come back to that, but at least we wanted to get this plan kicked off tonight, get this moving along, and really the next step that will be next month, as I said, March 1st, is chapter 2, which will get into much of Darien's development patterns, what's happened over the past 30 or 40 years, what types of housing has been constructed recently.
Is that what we're going into now?
And that's what Dave's going to be working on starting, I want to say tomorrow morning, but later this week.
Okay. So we're good with the community values and goals document. Now you want to switch to the other one? Which is this one? Because I got a
table of contents, I think is pretty straightforward because again, it's building off that checklist, which was given to us by that every town's been given by this consultant. So we felt that that was the most prudent way to proceed is, you know, those are the topics that most communities will be covering. And so what we try to do is think about how we want to cover those topics in an outline form, which will really give Dave the jumping off point to put text in with kind of this, laying it out for him in terms of going forward.
Okay. Can I give you a couple of thoughts on this?
Sure.
Okay, real quick. You have in the first page, the deed restricted and the higher density and then the others. Question, where does the two from Darien self-storage fit? Do they fit anywhere?
Yes, they are in B4, top of page 2.
Or top of page 2. Got it. Sorry. Okay, great, Darien self-storage. I call it Darien self-storage, but just for the record, it is Dollar Tree self-storage. The second item was, I did notice on here, ABC House at Tokenique Road, there's 8 of them. What about that ABC House that's across the street from the community church on Brookside?
I don't know if they still use that. That's something we're gonna have to investigate. Originally, that was the ABC house.
Right.
Then they bought out property on Tokenique Road. I don't know if they still use that one on Brookside Road or not.
Okay, I don't know if anybody here is a person of the community church, which is the old one in town. I know Eric, who's since gone, no, Eric Voigt was, and General, yeah.
That's the type of thing we're gonna investigate. I think the purpose of this chapter is to say,
Okay,
you know, everyone thinks, when you think of Darien, you think, oh, single family housing.
right,
And I think this chapter shows that, yeah, there's a lot out there that has been developed historically that is not just single family housing. And when I was putting together the outline, working with Dave on it, we realized how many different types of housing there are out there. And that's why we want to emphasize, there's deed restricted affordable housing, which frankly is a new thing. You know, Dave and I were kidding around. 80 years ago, it didn't exist. It was like the internet. It didn't exist, deed restricted affordable housing. It's more of a recent construct. So that's something that as times change, you know, there's going to be, you know, just because Darien didn't have some for many, many years, now you're seeing in the list here many more than there was 20 years ago. There's higher density housing. Darien's put a big emphasis on mixed use development. We talked about with Federal Realty and the Corbin development, but there's been others as well. In the 1980s was the first condominiums in Darien. It was very controversial at the time, people who were here in the early 1980s. But you could see a number of projects were constructed, and those have been very valuable to the community in presenting different housing choices for people. If you don't want to own and maintain a big parcel, there's a choice for you. There's other non-traditional housing. It's kind of a newer thing. We talked about 26 East Lane for those with developmentally disabled young adults. Assisted and independent living facilities. In the old days, they may have been called nursing homes. Now, again, it's a different type of housing. So we wanted to discuss not only that, but historic development patterns in Darien. We want to talk a little bit about the 2 moratoria, which the town has achieved over time. We're one of the very, very few communities, I think there's only 2 or 3 that have 2 moratoria per 830G.
With that, can we add a bullet point that we would like to achieve another one? Is that a goal or is that a requirement?
Yeah, Dave and I did talk when we were on the phone last week about that exact question. And I think the consensus the 2 of us came to, and it'll ultimately be a question for the commission. Is that a stated goal, or is that more of something that will arise out of achieving other things?
Just because it happened.
Along the way, as you look at these other things, that might not have been your goal, but it might be a result. And so Dave and I said, you know what, let's not include it just yet as a goal. Let's see how the plan develops. And it could be that the commission in a month or 2 from now says, you know what, maybe that does become a goal. Because you might find there's competing goals. And so it might just be a nice result. And it might, while it might not be a goal of the commission or a goal of the plan.
Okay, just along those lines, and Chairman's 100% correct. It is a, I don't know if it's the word unintended consequence. It's a consequence of what we're doing. I've always said publicly, we're not chasing moratorium points. We're kind of sort of chasing units. You know, we'd like more affordable units. you know, we're not necessarily chasing moratorium points. We've never, I don't think we've ever done that.
Yeah, I think that's the key is looking at, there's other goals here, is
Right.
the way you develop as a community, the way you consider rezoning properties, et cetera. So that's something to think about. And it's funny you asked that question because Dave and I had the same discussion last week.
Because I know, I have a commissioners meeting with the other commissioners in the other towns, our peer towns, I think on Thursday afternoon. Some of the other towns or their board of selectmen have no interest in chasing a moratorium. And they may have it. I mean, like Greenwich, I think they have enough points and they don't want to do it. Why? I don't know. Not the flag say. That to me goes back to local control. You want to be able to put affordable housing, multifamily housing where we want it. And that's the whole reason behind moratoriums. And when you get the 2-year moratorium, it gives you time to plan for that. And we have done it. And that's what we've done during the 2 moratorium periods. Okay.
So next month, on March 1st, we'll be talking about Chapter 2. And then in April, we'll probably talk about housing needs assessment. And then in May, we'll include some of this, or late April, we'll talk about some of the zoning changes that have occurred through time and some of the other accomplishments of the commission. So every 3 to 4 weeks, we'll put this on the agenda, give you a draft chapter to think over, mull over, talk about, give us feedback on. But we're getting this off the ground and moving.
Okay, fantastic. Any questions at this point for any other commissioners? That was a pretty good overview. Everyone's saying no, good, okay. Do we want to do a chairman's report and in the minutes? It's 10:10, or you want to keep going? I just wrote down a couple of bullet points relative to developments in town that perhaps is fun to go over. What do you think? Do you guys care or don't care? Let's just blow through it really quick. One thing we do have to figure out is the governor might lift this mask mandate indoors. I'm doing it for schools at the end of the month, which I think is the February 28th. We have to decide as a commission if we want to go hybrid. Everybody come back in. This is what we call hybrid now. And everyone's got a different thing. But if we're going to stick with a hybrid mode where Jim Rand stays in his house the whole time, that's fine. I just want to make sure that with regards to AV equipment, that we're as best we can possibly be to do our jobs and serve the public. So that's the one overview thing. In terms of the chairman's report, I just wrote down a bunch of things. I drive around town, I look at projects, and just wanted to give everybody a quick update. The first time on my list is the bridge to Darien, which is the entrance on the Post Road on the Stanford border, is now done. It's finally complete. I think it was a 3-year project. So now we have a new entrance to our town, and all those businesses that are on that end of town are probably excited, which is the bar on the left, which is the rib place, and then Giovanni's. They're got to be happy as very much. The next item on my list is the federal project, Building 1, which faces on West Avenue. That's fully enclosed. All the windows are in, all the roof is on, the siding's going up, and the landscaping is done. That building is supposed to open and start leasing in the spring. And for the edification of the Board of Education, it should be open for August, and I would expect some school kids to go in there. I guess those kids at this point in time are going to go to, I think they go to homeschool, but I want to make sure that the Board of Education knows that that building should be open for the August school year. Building 2, which is closer to Heights Road, it's 3/4 topped off. They have not finished the total roof. They haven't put the roof on, and the trusses are up. It's now the next piece is going to turn the corner and front more on which at Edgerton Road. That piece is starting to come out of the ground now. That building will be behind the other one. There have been additional retail tenants that were announced publicly by federal and other tenants and discussed restaurants. Those. Okay. Yeah, there's an Italian restaurant and a pizza parlor. Staff in-house has gotten a couple of different meetings and calls and questions from the developer and federal on what tenants are within our plan and what tenants are not and how they're going to handle those. So that's something that's to be determined. The next really cool item on my list is 34 Old Kings Highway. That building is basically done. I think the tenant was supposed to move in last Friday if they got all their signing and clearance and sign-offs. The outside of the building is not been complete because they can't put the panels on during the winter when there's moisture in the background because you'll trap the moisture in. So the building can be open and occupied if they get their certificate of occupancy and the building complete. But the outside paneling is not going to be on. They also at 1020 did put in the new pergola, which we approved last year, and that's up and running. And that took a little time to get the documents there. As you know, the developer of Baywater Properties is supposed to move all of their staff out of 32 Old Kings Highways, no, 36 Old Kings Highways basement and move into 34 Old Kings Highway. And that's the one that's got the first rooftop terrace. The next item on my list, BMW's basically finished with they're finished out with their phase one, which is the car wash. That building's been completed. It's not in operation yet, and the facade's not on it, but there's 4 walls of the car wash is there. You definitely cannot really see it from the road unless you really look for it and try to design it. But once the car wash gets open, then they can knock down the building in the back after that. 1897 Post Road is the new building that we talked about. That's at the top of Rings End Road on the corner of Dickinson. That building is close to being finished. It's still fenced in. 2 weeks ago or last week, we allowed one tenant in the ground floor to go in there. Again, that's going to have 5 apartments. The building, I got to say, from the outside is absolutely beautiful. I think whatever the developer did and the architecture review board did, I think they knocked that one out of the park. The next item is the Playhouse. The Playhouse is pretty much finished. Kennedy's haircutting place is open. I know one of the apartments was pre-leased. I don't know if they got their C of O's yet.
I don't know how many, but at least one is being occupied.
Yeah, one of the apartments being occupied. There's 4 apartments in there. There's no affordables in there. The Taqueria restaurant, the bar, it's Taco Taqueria or something like that. That's how it's pronounced. That has got paper in the windows. They're going to open up in short order. And then the lighting store on the corner, that one's got paper in the windows. They're doing a tenant fit out, and that should open up in short order. With that said, downtown Darien, we have had some replacement tenants after the new year. Some tenants moved out. There's a couple signs that say available for lease, and we already have new tenants that are moving in some of those. So net, I think we still only have 1 or 2 vacant units in all of downtown, which pales in comparison to our peer towns. What else do I have? Palmer's, we talked about that many times, and we're going to review that one last time. But those are our really 4 big projects that are done. And I think we're moving forward. The other one is, Oxford School. Any questions, comments on that? They're still on target?
As far as I know.
Fantastic. All right, guys. That's that. Do you want to do the minutes?
Up to you guys. If not, we can put them on for next week.
Want to punt the minutes to next week? It's 10:15. I'd like to go by 10:30.
I had no comments or concerns with them.
Okay. Everybody else have a chance to look at them?
I looked at them without no issues.
Okay. Jeff Ball, you good? Okay, fantastic. Then we'll just go through these. The first item on here was the public hearing. Special permit act with the Dental Associates. The Mario Labardi one, 72 Old Kings Highway. We did 320 Brookside. We talked about it tonight. And then the last few pages are the resolution for Parklands, which is the resolution that we passed, which we can't change that anyway. And that's pretty much it. At the end, we have public hearings and other stuff going on. So with that said, any questions, comments, changes, typos? Nothing? I'd entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Jeff Ball makes a motion, Jim Rand makes a second. All those in favor? Aye. That is 5-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda, any other business? No other business, so we'll move on. Our next meeting is February 15th, which is next week, which is the day after my daughter's birthday, if Adam's keeping tabs on it. We gotta have one every month. The one after, then we have the week off, then we go back to March 1st. All right. And with all that said, at 10:19, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Adam, seconded by Jim Rand. All those in favor? Right, it's 5-0. Thank you, everybody. See you next week, the day after my daughter's birthday.